Alright, hey guys, Richard with Brotherhood of Reviews, and we are back with theory time, and we are going to be reacting to some of the latest theories. A lot of things have been happening on Egghead and in the One Piece world, so let's see what these creators have come up with this time. You know, if you've been watching my channel for a while, you know I'm not a theorist. I don't, obviously, I give my opinions on what I think might happen, but I don't go diving deep into all the nooks and crannies on, you know what I mean? They said somebody's favorite color was red on this chapter, and this chapter is related to that. This means that, you know what I mean? I just don't go through all that, so we are just going to go see what these people have to say, and I'm probably gonna watch a video of each creator that I have in the description. So I'm probably gonna watch one video from Threeville, from Daxake, from Hidden Island, and from Preach and Oars. So without further ado, let's just jump right into it. So who are we? Okay, we're here with Preach and Oda's insane plan for Elfbath. Let's watch this. The ultimate Monkey D theory. It's damn near an hour-long video.
First, you'll be receiving a high-quality education. Our campuses are consistent.
Did you know that if you look real closely on the giant golden bell of Shandora, you'll see a monkey, but not just any monkey, a monkey with a straw hat. I know that gave me chills down my spine, goosebumps, especially since it was Monkey D. Luffy who rang the bell during Skypiea. You see, when I discovered this groundbreaking detail hidden in plain sight, I thought to myself, was this awesome crazy coincidence? Or what are the chances that whoever created the bell in the ancient past knew that Straw Hat Luffy, or in other words, Joy Boy, would one day strike the bell of Shandora? And now that I've gathered your attention, keep this in the back of your mind for now until the end of the video, because it will all make sense soon enough as I show you how Oda has already told us how the One Piece story ends. And this video is going to contain massive spoilers to the end of One Piece, spoilers to the entire history and importance of the Monkey D family. But hold on, before I get ahead of myself, we had to start out from the very beginning, because after rereading Skypiea and researching the Monkey D family for months, I think I've discovered the truth about Luffy's ancestors. Today I'll tell you why the Monkey D family is the most feared, most powerful, and most important family in the entire One Piece world. I'll explain their connection to the former Joy Boy, and I'll tell you why they are worshipped by Shandora. I'll reveal how Dragon's goals are tied to Luffy's, the revolutionary and the future pirate king. I'll reveal many secrets on the Will of D. I'll reveal Oda's entire inspiration and plan for these two characters, so stick around to the end of the video to have your mind blown as I reveal everything there's to know about Luffy and his infamous Monkey D family. Let's start out with the basics. What do we already know about the Will of D and its cryptic meaning? The most crucial and important information we have on the middle initial D is that it's being passed on and that those of the D clan oppose the gods or the celestial dragon, whether because of a fated future or an ancient history, or maybe a bit of both. This makes the Will of D members and the celestial dragons natural enemy. Even Emu states how the D clan were once the past enemy of the celestial dragons, referring to the Void Century time. But the most mysterious thing that Emu tells us is that the current D members don't know the meaning of the initial or the importance it holds. This is strange and implies that Emu and the celestial dragons wiped out the D clan during a Void Century in some kind of war. I mean, even Lily, Cobra, and the Nefertatis don't know the meaning of the D, which is also strange, but we'll come back to this later in the video because it'll all lead us into the theory that the Monkey D family is the only remaining family of the D clan who have existed since the Void Century. So yeah, it'll all make sense, but just keep it in the back of your mind for now. Essentially, whatever the D represents, it's been suppressed. It's been erased just like Sun God Nikafru has been erased from the world. Celestial dragon translates to heavenly gods, with celestial relating to heavens and dragons being the closest thing to gods according to Oda, because he mentions this in the opening page of One Piece Volume 13. He also asks, I wonder what would happen if you eat them. Now this is kind of a separate idea, but I always wondered, is it possible that celestial dragons actually ate the dragons during the Void Century as some kind of ritual, which allowed them, at least in their mind, to become gods? I mean, dragons seem to have gone extinct in the One Piece world, and considering that ancient giants like Zunisha, Sea Kings, and Poseidon all seem to be tied to the ancient kingdom and Joy Boy, it makes me believe that dragons were once also tamed by the D clan and allies of them as well. We know celestial dragons had heavy fascination in dragons as well, as Brownbeard mentions this during the Punk Hazard arc. So I think it would be really cool if Monkey D Dragon actually found one of the remaining dragons from the Void Century that survived the celestial dragon's extinction, since we know these giant creatures like Zunisha and the Sea Kings can live for hundreds of years. Or maybe that giant egg on Roger's ship actually was a dragon, and Monkey D Dragon found it years later. And we actually have an entire separate theory on this as well, where we explain how Dragon found Uranus, which was in this egg. So I'll leave that video in the description if you're interested. Now going back to the D clan, we also know that the D clan members are feared by celestial dragons and are raised to fear them. I believe this has to do with a prophecy that the D will always bring a storm, and that this storm will destroy the celestial dragons. Freeze. And trust me, this storm prophecy is much more important than we ever imagined, because I think I finally deciphered this storm phrase and its importance to the One Piece story, which predicts the events of the end of One Piece. But before you understand what that means, we have to analyze each of the monkey family members one by one, and show how important each one of them is to the end of One Piece and the will of D as a whole. We're also going to be focusing heavily on Dragon here, and he's arguably just as important to this entire theory as Luffy. But before that, if you could quickly leave a like, it really helps the video. We need your help to reach our goal of 2,000 likes on this video, and I have full faith that we'll reach it. The monkey family is just built different. Of course, from a physical perspective, Garp's name is literally Garp D. Fist, one of the greatest nicknames in fiction. His upper body is that of a monstrous man, and
Garp D.
he once went
Fist.
toe-to-toe with Goldie Roger, another legendary pirate in his younger days. He's arguably the greatest marine to ever live, and you may call it his nature being passed down to the Monkey D family and the D clan, but he despises the celestial dragons, and this was the main reason he would not rise to the admiral ranks, because he hated the thought of even serving directly under them. Personality wise, Garp is a completely insane person. Garp does what he wants when he wants, and has the mindset of a true Giga Chad. If Garp wants to do something, no one is going to tell him no. And so if he really wants the demise of the celestial dragons that he's been holding on to deep down for decades, what happens when these deep-rooted feelings rise? Well, keep that in mind, because I believe Garp will aid in the downfall of the celestial dragons, despite being a marine. And that's because Dragon specifically reminds us how the revolutionaries army's enemy is the celestial dragon and not the marine.
There's never been a better time to get away. With a great deal on the Hyundai you've always...
Marines. If Garp is a sword member or someone who is the inspiration for sword,
That's actually a good point, that their enemy, the enemy of the D is the celestial dragons, not necessarily the Navy or the world government. I guess maybe more so the world government than the Navy, but you know what I mean? It's just more of like these the D clan is enemies of these groups. It's like rival gangs, or the best way I could put it, like, because it's, I wouldn't say it's more of like a country thing. It's just more of this group of people against this group of people.
free-spirited marine, Garp could go down as not only the greatest marine ever, but someone who sparks a civil war and true change with his influence and inspiration. Garp was said to be one of the big motivating reasons that people are so excited to join the Marines. They truly look up to him as a hero, and I believe that many people within the Marines will follow his lead, like Smoker, Kobe, and many others. And this is Garp's role in the final saga, as a D member and someone who will go down in history as an extremely pivotal factor in the change the world sees. He is the one man with the sway to add fuel to Dragon's revolution. And speaking of Dragon is also built different. Sure, he's a booger-picking nose digger, but I think most people will agree that Dragon is likely a top 5 strongest character in One Piece, at least in the current timeline. And that's a fair assumption to make, since after all, he's related to both Garp and Luffy, who are both truly superhuman. Dragon, just like Garp, despises the Celestial Dragon rule, and even goes a step further to carry on Ohara's will and start an army that will lead a revolution which directly opposes them. He didn't sell his soul to the world government like Vegapunk. Instead, only someone with Dragon's willpower, dedication, patience, and perseverance could do what Dragon made his entire life's goal about. A man on a mission with the bigger picture always in the back of his mind like he's Lil Baby. A man who's ready to face the entire world. He started with the freedom fighters, but he's now made his life's work a revolution, to dive headfirst into a war with the Celestial Dragons. And even though Dragon once stated that he hates war, the Celestial Dragons are a group that's angered him to the point of no return. And I just love how it was most likely Celestial Dragons who made him change his perspective on war, making them the exception to his personal feelings. Is Dragon a hypocrite? It's possible, but even more possible that he's changed a lot throughout the years and discovered the true horrors of the Void Century and many disgusting truths about the Celestial Dragons and their corrupted power. It's more likely that he's disgusted by the corruption, deception, and lies. And now we know that Dragon's instincts and intuition is right, because according to his right-hand man, Sabo, the Gorosei and Imu are demons, with a demonic and evil aura, a sinister energy, with Sabo even describing these shadows who run the world as hell at the top of the world. After all, Ivankov states how he believes Imu is an immortal being, with all this information like the information on the Holy Knights, and Sabo now knowing the truth about Imu and the Gorosei, this is all leading to a revolution that will change the entire world. Sabo may be the face of this militarized movement, but Dragon is the revolution itself. He's the core of the the entire organization. We've already seen Shank, but I'm so excited for Dragon, since Oda once stated that if he had to make a side series of any character, it would be on Garp or Dragon's life. It implies Oda already has an interesting story to tell for both these characters, most likely including their past and their backstories, their own hero journeys, and I'd love to see Garp's rise through the Marines, but for Dragon, I'd love to see what drove him completely off the deep end, because with Garp, it's amazing how we could see God Valley and Roger and Whitebeard, Rocksteady, Zebek, but with Dragon and how insane his go and drive is, I feel like this guy had to have some truly traumatizing moments for him to abandon Luffy and to become the world's worst criminal and showing the world a glimpse of change. Maybe Luffy's mother or Dragon's mother is involved in a tragedy that impacts both Garp and Dragon to hate the Celestial Dragons. Obviously, this idea is all speculation, but it is very mysterious that we've never even heard of Luffy's mother once in the entire story, and if she is dead, that would explain a lot, since no one ever really brings her up, as she's someone who's already passed in a tragic event. It's different with Dragon, as Garp tells Luffy about his father at Water 7 because he's still alive. Dragon, more than anyone, believes in inherited will, as he is introduced with a Goldie Roger quote speaking on freedom, inherited will, and dreams. These things cannot be stopped. Inherited will, one's dreams, the ebb and flow of the ages. As long as people hunger for freedom, these things cannot be stopped. Remember how I mentioned how I believe there's a prophecy that the D-Clan will eventually defeat the Celestial Dragons? Well, this aligns with this quote, inherited will, or the will of D, being passed on for generations, which continues the will to face the gods. Then there's dreams to become the Pirate King, dreams to create a revolution, Luffy and Dragon's dreams directly opposing the world government, the prophecy being only a matter of time before the day comes, and all of this is leading to what Luffy and Dragon both want most, freedom. That's why at the very end of this quote, Dragon says, a pirate, eh? Not a bad idea, in reference to his son Luffy. And remember, earlier I specifically stated that this prophecy states that the D will bring a storm. Well, this storm is something that's been referenced.
The only issue I feel with theories is that I feel like they repeat themselves like for the first 20 minutes.
Rises out the shadows out of history, an elderly celestial dragon at Marijua says the same saying, the D will always cause another storm, or in some translations, the D will bring a storm. Now you may be wondering, well, why is this so important? Why does it matter so much when we're talking about Dragon? And why has it been passed on with other D myths, like the myth that the evil D members will eat the kids if they misbehave? Well, what if I told you this is all so important? What if I told you that Dragon himself is the storm, his revolution being the very storm the celestial dragons fear? So we should really start calling him Dragon D Storm at this point. Just like Luffy is a prophetic figure in his own right as the new Joy Boy, someone who was predicted and prophesied by the Shandorans to return and ring the bell. I believe Dragon represents the storm, and this is where you can see that that monkey on that golden bell with a straw hat is so key to this theory, as it may just be another Easter egg, but as Rayleigh says, there's no coincidence in this world. Now do you see why I believe that Dragon is the storm? Well, it gets even better, because for decades people have been theorizing that Dragon would have some kind of
wind power
based fruit, maybe even a mythical creature who's tied to these elements. Essentially, the theory stems from the idea that it was Dragon who created the lightning at Logtown, saving Luffy from being executed.
I think it's funny how like in theories like they find little details like, oh, the D-Clan members are supposed to bring a storm, they're gonna come, you know what I mean, all of that, and then they relate it to the fact that everybody thinks that Dragon has some wind or storm devil fruit. So you know what I mean, that's just a small connection, or like, you know what I mean, because it's we don't even know if it's true or not. It's just every time we see him in the manga or in the anime, there's like a whole bunch of wind around him, and it's just becomes windy out of nowhere. So like it's just funny how you could take a small detail and then equate it to that, and then just put it with something that is just speculation amongst the fans. But other than that, like so far it's like nothing he really said is wrong technically, you know what I mean. Even with Dragon's wind powers or wind abilities, we don't know whether or not he actually has any abilities or not, so we can keep that connection if we want. If people don't believe that he has wind abilities or a wind devil fruit, whatever the case may be, they can just disregard this little piece anyways, because it doesn't really this point he just made really doesn't hold enough weight in my opinion, to really, like, all the other things about, like, the similarities between him, his son, and his father are all legitimate, like, things that are proven, like, in certain ways. Like, you know what I mean? He started the Revolutionary Army. He's got a bounty. He doesn't fuck with the government, just like his father. And Luffy doesn't care for the government, especially after what they did for Robin, and the fact that technically he's in the middle of a war with the government because he shot down their flag. Even though he became a Yonko, like, it's not, being a Yonko wasn't something that he like set his goals on. It's just something with him coming with the territory of him beating Kaido. So you know what I mean? It's just, you know, just wanted to point that out.
Sanji even asked Zoro, do you believe in God? Because of how insanely lucky this was. Even Luffy acknowledging his luck. We know the dragon was there at Lawtown, so it's extremely likely he'd save his own son, and that this is the luck that Dragon was referring to, as he was extremely lucky that Dragon was nearby during this arc, instead of natural lightning saving his life. It's interesting because if this is true, it means that he's been keeping tabs on Luffy since he knew lightning wouldn't hurt Luffy since he's rubber. He may have asked Garp or Shanks about Luffy at some point in the past, learning about him eating the Nika fruit. But I think you see where I'm going with this. Dragon himself is the storm in both the literal and metaphorical sense. I believe Dragon possesses the storm fruit, or at least something that fully gives him the power of storms, where he can literally become the storm itself, fully embodying the godly power. And this would be a completely broken fruit, either a mythical zone or a special Logia. Smoker says that the last time he saw Dragon was at Lawtown during Roger's execution, where he disappeared into thin air like lightning.
あのタンクはなんだ22年前ロードとロジャーが直撃されたその同じ日に稲妻の容疑が流れ
But in the anime, they make it much more obvious that these winds, these small tornadoes, are Dragon's power. When Dragon goes back to his hometown and saves Sabo, he put out a fire with wind. And in the manga during Lawtown, we see him targeting the wind specifically at Marines, allowing Luffy to escape. It's almost as he literally and symbolically is bringing a storm with him wherever he goes. What do you think Dragon's devil fruit is? Personally, I'm going with the storm fruit, the ultimate Logia. Many elements in one: rain, water, windy gusts, ice, hail, snow, tornadoes, lightning. This really isn't all that crazy when you think about Big Mom doing these types of things with Prometheus and Hera, and even Kaido having fire blast, lightning, dragon twisters, tornadoes, and flame clouds. And I like to think that Dragon's signature move, or at least one of them, would be something playing around the theme of Dragon Twister, since, well, he's Dragon, but he can also create these tornadoes. And Dragon may not be a Yonko, but his power will be that of a Yonko as the father of Luffy. And so when the Celestial Dragons say that the D will bring a storm, what a better way for Dragon to arrive at Brijoa than with a giant storm, striking fear into the hearts of all Celestial Dragons as they cry in fear at this day of godly reckoning, especially since the Celestial Dragons have been shown to be extremely superstitious. The prophecy is so known, and this will make it where Dragon is really the key to Celestial Dragon's downfall. We already can see this through the Revolution, but this story is becoming even more grand in scale since tying back to the theme of inherited will. This storm has been building up for hundreds of years, and it's finally ready to be unleashed. The storm is a symbol of all those D members who have come before him, everyone in the world who's dealt with pain, slavery, suffering, and the horrible effects of the world government's rule. And this is the real reason Oda is saving Dragon for the end game of One Piece. If you ever seen Dragon Ball, you'll know that when they summon the dragon, giant dark clouds surround the world. And this is because Shenlong is inspired by
He has begun.
a dragon who was known for storms, and I can't think of a more badass way that Dragon can enter whenever we see him. We already saw this happen both times in Lawtown during Roger's execution and during Lawtown, where a dark storm comes in as Dragon enters, and it could be something so terrifying, with lightning shooting straight out the sky and targeting specific enemies. I just cannot wait to see Dragon go all out for the first time, as his Logia power will be able to
Gosh.
change the entire weather and environment into a giant powerful storm. All of this puts Dragon's significance as a D member up there with the likes of even Joy Boy himself. And speaking of Luffy, let's jump into his character. Luffy is someone who, just like his father and grandfather, despises Celestial Dragon. When we talk about being built different, Luffy is the ultimate example. He's speedrunning the New World. He's already surpassed Kaido, at least solely in terms of haki. He's also mastered his Devil Fruit, awakening it, and as far as physically, he's the toughest teenager the One Piece world has ever seen. Despite Luffy only being 19, he's already liberated multiple nations from corruption and piracy, and he's already become become a Yonko. To put in perspective, Shanks was still in his 30s when he earned that title as an emperor. Luffy is now strong enough to defeat 99% of the One Piece verse with ease, and his story isn't even over yet. And while we haven't seen it yet, Straw Hat Luffy or Joy Boy is the future Pirate King. Luffy has always clearly been a superhuman after being raised alongside Ace with his grandfather Garp, but his mind has also grown into that of a true king, someone who speaks his mind no matter what the circumstance is, someone who shows no fear against the most powerful and evil pirates like Big Mom and Kaido. If he sees something is wrong, he'll do what he can to change it and deal with the consequences after. He's happy and joyful when things are as he believes they should be, and so Luffy's spirit is truly unbreakable, as this was the entire point of his battle with Kaido, someone who never gives up, someone who always bounces back, a symbol that people believe in because he creates miracles time and time again doing the impossible. In Wano it's revealed that Luffy is Joy Boy, an actual sun god, and the warrior of liberation who's been erased from history by the world government. Many of the celestial dragons like Charlos are weak, gross, and pathetic people. These are people who have no physical authority to act this way. For someone like Luffy or Garp, it's their natural instinct to fight people if they disagree with them, and Luffy's made it clear that the thing he hates the most is cowards. Ever since he was a child, he hated Shanks when he thought that he was a coward, all those mountain bandits to spit on him and disrespect him. He hated Kobe because of how much of a crybaby loser he was at first, and he just doesn't like Shirahoshi for the same reason as well. But one thing about Luffy is that he also hates when you take away people's freedom, and so the celestial dragons are the ultimate combination of both. Charlos, a coward loser who
Okay, I was about to say, where is he going with this?
Again, understand that if he wants to force his will and change upon the world, he's gonna have to do it with his fist. Pretty much every single time Luffy saves another nation, it's never through negotiation. Instead, it's by brute force.
I think we get it. Like, I just don't.
It's only natural for the members of the Monkey D family.
Okay, let me just. I'm not gonna lie. I feel like he's just been repeating himself for the last 10 minutes.
Time before the army unites with the Straw Hats. It's also interesting to think that Robin has spent more time with the revolutionaries than Luffy and the Straw Hat pirates, so Robin is truly integral to both crews. She is the key to exposing the true history to the world. Luffy wants to find the One Piece, while Dragon wants to expose the celestial dragons and learn the truth, and Robin can help out both as a centerpiece. Next we have Sabo, Luffy's brother, saved by Dragon of the Revolution. It almost seems like fate. At this point, I truly believe that Sabo has the will of D, just like the Gorosei speculated in chapter 1086. Sabo's already friends with Nigo Robin, and so with a relationship like this, it's really only a matter of time before we now see the relationship between father and son come together. And speaking of Sabo, Luffy still doesn't know what happened at the Reverie. He was so ready to charge into Marijoa and help Vivi before Zoro stepped in, and so ultimately I see this moment as simply foreshadowing a great setup for Luffy to eventually invade Marijoa, because when he actually learns about the truth about Vivi and Cobra from Sabo, or the world government and celestial dragons do something even crazier to piss him off. The first time Luffy came across a celestial dragon, he was disgusted, and despite the warnings not to do anything, he just couldn't resist punching Charlos in the face at the slave auction in Sabaody. It was a natural instinct and reaction, a natural disgust at this pathetic false god. And so at a certain point, Luffy's not going to care what people tell him. He's just going to run straight into Marijoa and go at their head. Luffy is also now a Yonko, and being a Yonko means that when the world government attacks Luffy at Egghead, they are declaring war against him and his entire crew and the abundance of allies that he has. So tying in the declaration of war and the element of Vivi and Cobra, who are his friends, after finally knowing the truth, it'll be finally time to charge into Marijoa and continue this war that the world government has already started. You have to think about it this way: Vivi's already essentially a Straw Hat, and Imu's leading his forces to find Vivi. We know Luffy takes you messing with his friends extremely personal, like in Water 7 and Enos Lobby, so I think people expect the Straw Hats need to visit Laugh Tale and see the One Piece first to spark the invasion of Marijoa after learning the truth. But knowing Luffy's nature, he doesn't need any type of information on the history of the world government to charge into Marijoa. I'm not saying it has to happen a certain way, but I'm just saying we should keep an open mind, because Oda has already stated that the One Piece will be at the very end of the series. All Luffy needs to attack the Celestial Dragons is a reason to help his friends and find a good fight. We already have an example of Luffy declaring war, and it was just to save Robin. And now seeing Sai and Leo murder Charlos and scream for everyone to hear, that's on game, that's on Straw Hat Grand Fleet. We're seeing more and more hints pointing towards Luffy versus the world government being set up to face. Cobra's dying words to Sabo was to tell Luffy and Vivi that they are members of the D-Clan, so this is another way that Oda has set up Sabo and Dragon to meet up with Luffy and Vivi. And this is because I believe that Vivi will rejoin the Straw Hat Pirates, because in her heart she's essentially already a Straw Hat, and she's not strong, so Luffy will have to protect her. Another way to tie Luffy and Dragon into an alliance is through Bonnie, as she could also be involved here, now becoming Luffy's ally during Egghead and this entire Buster Call situation. And with Kuma being a revolutionary, there's another reason for both parties to meet up. I'm also pretty sure that Bonnie has met Dragon at some point, similar to how she met Vegapunk before, and I like to think that Kuma was the former right-hand man to Dragon before Sabo and before he left the army to become a warlord and join Vegapunk. I could see Bonnie becoming a revolutionary, following in the footsteps of her father, once she understands the truth about Kuma and Vegapunk's history. And since Sabo helped to save Kuma from Marijoa during the reverie, she now trusts the revolutionaries more than ever. So I really do think that Bonnie will join the revolutionaries, because as Kuma's daughter, she'll be welcomed in with open arms. But how will this all play out? How will Bonnie join the revolutionaries? Well, this leads me to my biggest prediction for the finale of Egghead. I think the start of Luffy and Dragon's alliance will be at the very end of Egghead when Luffy finally meets his father. Dragon will show up at the very end, similar to how Shanks did during Marineford. Everyone always wonders, how on earth did the red-haired pirates get there so fast at the perfect timing at the very last second as Shanks clashes with the Kainu? Shanks is a Yonko and he's fast, and he was booking it across the world. But if anyone's faster than Shanks, it may be Dragon, the Storm Logia. The man is fast as lightning and wind itself. Dragon pulling up to Egghead bringing an entire storm with him would be the most hype scene ever, and arguably more hype than Shanks' moment at Marineford. He could arrive at the very tail end. Right on time
I don't agree with that.
old friend Vegapunk escaped.
I don't think Dragon showing up will ever be a better moment than that moment with Shanks.
Shaka talking to Dragon early in the arc, telling him that he will die soon. Next, we see Dragon and Vegapunk's mini flashback to Ohara. Third, there's Kuma, who's also tying both. Since the revolutionaries are already at war with the world government, I could even see Dragon show up simply to face his enemy here head on. And I also think it's possible that we see a Holy Knight alongside Saturn. Once Dragon arrives at the scene to finish off the escape, the way I see Luffy meeting his father for the first time playing out is with Luffy and Dragon both picking their nose. Then they clash and we finally get to see Dragon's devil fruit revealed in text after 25 years. While Dragon might be a lot more serious in nature, especially compared to Joy Boy, the Straw Hats and revolutionaries will see their own similarities. You have to remember, Luffy's idea of an alliance is so much different from an actual idea of an alliance. For him, it's just someone that's his friend. For example, we saw with Law, it had completely different ideas of an alliance, but it all worked out in the end, and the same could be said for him and Sabo if they teamed up. In Luffy's eyes, Ivankov, Sabo, Nico Robin, even Kuma, they're all like friends to him. Now, at one point when Luffy and Dragon do invade Marijoa and take down the Celestial Dragons, I always envisioned a scene where Luffy, Garp, and Dragon are standing up against the 5 Godosei facing them together. But eventually, I think that Luffy will have to move on to Emu or Blackbeard, and that will leave Garp or Dragon to face against a Godosei, or maybe even both together. Eventually, I expect that Sabo and Zoro will also join in on the fight. Zoro to face the Gandhi, Venus, Judo, Godosei, and Sabo to get a rematch that he deserves as well. Finally being able to go all out in a fair 1v1, not against Emu and 5 Godosei at the same time. The idea of Garp facing a Godosei will just be so hype, getting the old man versus old man matchup. And then my final pick to face one of the final Godosei members would be Law or Rayleigh. Or maybe Dragon ends up defeating 2 Godosei at once, which would be extremely hype. This alliance will restore the monkey family to the throne. It's like Doflamingo says, whose good and evil always flips back and forth. It's possible the D-Clan and Celestial Dragons have a history of fighting for power. At one point, the Marines may have been seen as the enemies in comparison to the pirates, because in Wano we even see them compare the pirates and Marines together. But I can see Luffy either restoring the D-Clan to the leaders of the new world that he creates, or even better, Luffy as Joy Boy may even finish off this entire cycle completely. Where Luffy might differ from the previous Joy Boys, that he could be the final person to make a new era without prophecy, creating a new future without a cycle, which fits the themes of freedom and piracy, with Luffy being the key to a future that is a new uncharted adventure completely. The one thing on my wish list for the final saga is that Bonnie ages up Garp into his prime, because even if it's only for a single fight against a Godosei or against a Kainu, that would just be incredible. Because seeing Prime Luffy, Prime Dragon, and Prime Garp all fighting together, a prime trio of the world's most powerful fighters, will honestly be the greatest moment ever. Please Oda, just please let Bonnie use her powers on an old man like Garp so we can see the Garp D fist in action. And Garp is the one guy who's always bringing up his past glory days, the man who's always constantly bragging about his prime, so there's no one more fitting to give this moment to than the old hero. And this would also be so hype, as it could be the key to the moment moment which inspires all those Marines to switch sides and join him. Like I mentioned earlier, starting a civil war. If the Marines knew that Prime Garb had returned, they'd hop on the bandwagon just for the simple fact of believing in this man's greatness. Whitebeard once mentioned a great war that was to come one day, and there's no doubt in my mind that this war will be led by Luffy, Dragon, and Garp, father and sons, 3 generals of the Monkey D family, immortalizing the Monkey D family's name into history once again as bringers of needed change. But while I'm truly excited to see the Monkey D fam go ape and impact the future in a powerful way, what's just as important is this family's legendary past. So what is it that makes this family so special in the first place? How are all 3 of these men complete goats in their own right? What is their family's history? Well, it's time to reveal everything. You see, I believe that the Monkey D family is of a royal bloodline. We're talking about One Piece here, and in One Piece, kings and conquerors.
Not even gonna lie. Took 26 minutes of him repeating himself. And you know what I mean? To get to the point of the video. I love their videos, but it's just like he went over similarities twice within the first 10 minutes before we got to right here, and he compared the crews and all of that, which isn't bad. It gives you a little bit of backstory on similarities, but I don't think you needed 26 minutes of it, of comparing Garp, Luffy, and Dragon. I'm pretty sure most of us as fans know all the similarities by now.
Are usually determined by strength. It's in their nature to go against a celestial dragon. So is this a curse of some kind, something all Will of D members subconsciously succumb to? Or you could argue this reaction also has something to do with their conquering kingly nature. But ultimately, for the Monkey D fam specifically, I think it's a bit of both. Just like Charlos and the celestial dragons are clinging to the very narrow history of the world and clinging to the traditions and descendants of the gods despite being weak, the other side could be true for Luffy and his family's history being erased from the world, with the Monkey D family holding up their customs to their powerful actions and their insane nature instead of using laws, traditions, and
Yeah. Not really. Maybe enough to do like 2-3 loads. All right, Ma. I'm in the middle of shooting a video. I'll do it. I'll do it when I'm done.
During the
Sorry about that.
Dragons. That makes these men true pillars of revolution, and this all leads to the secret Shandoran history of the Monkey D family and why they're so important and connected to Joy Boy. And some of this I guarantee you would have never even imagined being possible. Most people might say that Luffy comes from a lineage of Joy Boy's ancestors, and I do think it's possible, but I actually don't think it's the case, and you'll understand why soon enough. But before getting to that, we need to go over the inspiration for the Monkey D family. Alright, so it's clear that Oda was inspired by many things for Luffy's character, Dragon Ball, Sun Wukong, and Hanuman. Because let's just say that Joy Boy was a Monkey D family member. Just like the Gold D family, you would think the world government would go through the entire world to eradicate this family line. And when they shown back up again with Garp, Luffy, and Dragon, you would think they would also go after them. And this leads me into Oda's inspiration for Luffy's character, Dragon Ball, Sun Wukong, and Hanuman. Looking back at the very early chapters of One Piece, there's clear similarities to early OG Dragon Ball. But even more so focusing on Luffy, as his name is Monkey D. Luffy, it's clear that he was inspired by the origins of Goku at least a little, as Goku was shown in Jump's iconic Monkey Boy. Going even deeper, Dragon Ball, at least before it was about alien invasions and fighting gods of destruction, was a simple parody gag manga of Journey to the West. So Luffy was inspired by Goku, and Goku was inspired by Sun Wukong. As One Piece progressed, we begin to see a lot more of how Oda began to be inspired by both, and Sun Wukong is notoriously compared to Luffy because just like Monkey D. Luffy is well becoming Pirate King, Sun Wukong was known as the Monkey King. In One Piece we had the D-Clan, or the enemy of the gods, but in Journey to the West, Monkey King Sun Wukong rivaled the gods in his own way. Sun Wukong is like a classic shonen story about reaching the highest highs and enlightenments. And in One Piece I would say the Straw Hats are also seeking enlightenment, and all in their own ways. And with their captain being Joy Boy, it wasn't more apparent than Luffy being enlightened when transforming into Gear 5. But arguably the most important is Hanuman, because he has the resemblance of a divine monkey god god and is revered as the Wisdom King. The biggest connection with him and Luffy is that it ties them to essentially being monkey kings, but also the monkey family members of Hanuman, which is comparable to the entire Monkey D family line. And shout out to all the Indians that subscribed to me, because months ago I met up with the
BFD is back. Black Friday deals from Optimum are better than ever. Get 1 gig fiber internet for as low as 40.
Indian One Piece community, and I have to say that experience was welcoming. Apparently Hanuman can shapeshift, he can change his form, and this reminds me of Luffy in Gear 5, or in all his gear forms, but really specifically with Gear 5 as he battles with Kaido and goes into many different forms. For example, how Luffy can grow into a giant and even shrink into a chibi form. It doesn't stop here, because Luffy's attacking Gear 5, the Badgering Gun, is a reference to Hanuman, meaning Monkey God Gun. And by the way, Badgering Gun is Luffy's best finisher in the entire series. Another little detail is that in the Hindu religions, many speculate that some of the inspiration for Zunisha comes from Gunisha, an elephant god. Now, tying Hanuman back into the monkey family as a whole, Hanuman is the son of Vayu, the god of wind and air. And like we discussed earlier, Dragon has the storm fruit and wind powers. Hanuman once ate the sun, thinking it was a fruit, just like Luffy ate the sun god Nika fruit. And there's so much more evidence and great videos out there that explain Luffy's connections to Hanuman and Sun Wukong, like Flying Panda, Threevil, and Ohara. So I'll make sure to leave them in the description. So now that you've seen this, I think you can see where I'm really going with this, because the monkey family is definitely special because they are One Piece's versions of the monkey god family, and so special in fact that the Shandorans even believed that Joy Boy would be reborn into the family, and that just gives me goosebumps. What all of this means is that the ancient people could predict certain events through visions or prophecies, and this is even—
Wait, what did he just say?
You know, Oda knew many great videos out there that explain Luffy's connections to Hanuman and Sun Wukong, like Flying Panda, Threevil, and Ohara. So I'll make sure to leave them in the description. So now that you've seen this, I think you can see where I'm really going with this, because the monkey family is definitely special because they are One Piece's versions of the monkey god family, and so special in fact that the Shandorans even believed that Joy Boy would be reborn into the family, and that just gives me goosebumps. Well, all of this means—
He said reborn into the family, like into who? The monkey family? Because I guess because of the things on the bell, but like, how do you correlate that to the monkey family, like other than the straw hat? And on top of that, the straw hat was given to him by Shanks. It's not like it was something that's in the hat, and how could they foreshadow? Well, technically everybody thinks that giant straw hat is Joy Boy's straw hat, but other than that, that's not even confirmed. So I'm still like, maybe he's trying to say that that's foreshadowing, but I don't know. I don't buy that.
And this is even more important because we know Oda knew many prophecies about Joy Boy returning to Wano in exactly 20 years. So when looking at Shandora and its ancient texts all around the city, unlike any other place in One Piece, it makes you wonder what other mysteries could have been foreshadowed or even completely solved by spending more time looking at the ancient artifacts. It seems these ancient artifacts tell more than just about the past, but also the future. Just like the Neptune family line is important, as there's prophecies of a mermaid princess being reborn as Poseidon. I believe that even if Oda doesn't blatantly spell it out for us, we can put these pieces together to see that the Monkey D family is in a similar situation. And there's other characters that may be reincarnations that aren't really confirmed yet, like for example maybe Vivi and Lily. And if you still think that fate, destiny, time travel, and prophecies ruin One Piece's story, well, I completely disagree, because many correlate these things to Luffy not being free, but that's not the case at all. You see, there's a few ways to look at this. First, Luffy still had to become the man he is. Having the best genes isn't enough, and I would argue that Big Mom had the best genes for any human in One Piece. But then there's also the idea of seeing the future with Future Sight and Madame Charlie using a magical crystal ball. Well, what this means is that we may actually be witnessing Luffy's story play out in real time, and from our perspective, the story is continuously moving forward. But you see, in retrospect, if we look back at Luffy's adventures as one long story, that's only from the point of view that we have with it being a weekly shonen series. You see, in retrospect, when we look back at Luffy's adventures one day as one long story that's already played out, viewing this story from the past or the future, it doesn't change the fact that Luffy had to do it. For example, if you're witnessing a specific event from the past, this means that this event already happened in the future, similarly to how an event already happened in the past when we look back at the past. People oftentimes try to separate time, but if you view it as one long timeline, we have to look at the past and the future times through a similar lens of history, whether it be a past history or a history in the future that Luffy's already accomplished. This way Luffy still did everything himself, but there was just a few members who could see this. And I started believing this idea with One Piece when you consider how important the future is. And really, the future is only a further future's history. It just depends from where you're standing in time and where you look at it. The current timeline of One Piece is a future.
For the most part, he's pretty much just saying history repeats itself. And I feel like he's gonna go on for like the next 5 minutes saying the product of the past is the product of the future. So if it happened in the past, it's gonna happen in the future. Bro, you've been saying it for like 2 minutes now.
In other
But
words, if Toki jumped 50 years into the future, she'd see Luffy's actions that we're currently witnessing as that future's history, as it would have already played out. But why Luffy is truly the chosen one to defy destiny is because he's already proven this in fights like with Katakuri. The entire point of Luffy's fight with Katakuri and Future Sight is that Luffy can change the future, because Luffy looks into the future and changes the future that Katakuri saw, which means that he changed it. And this was on a minuscule scale, but putting it on a much larger scale, and since Luffy is the main character, it means that Luffy still has the power to make drastic changes for the future. Rayleigh himself believes in Luffy because of this, and I think that even if Rayleigh knows what will happen because he saw the One Piece, the reason why Luffy is the man that Roger's waiting for is because Luffy's will is so powerful that this is the man who can change fate and the future itself. And so it's possible that it's even Luffy's dream to become the Pirate King or the freest man, because his goal is to have full freedom one day, full control of his actions, and the ability to dictate his own fate fully. And that's why Gear 5 is so important to him becoming an enlightened being, as he understands the cost of freedom, and he understands the concept that freedom ain't free. Now, going back to the Monkey King idea, I'll finally reveal why the Monkey D family were the previous rulers of Shandora. You see, in One Piece, people worship gods, but with my theory that the Monkey D family are an ancient royalty, you have to ask ourselves, how did they become royalty in the first place? Sure, a part of this can be from powerful wills and kingly nature. What if I told you that the Monkey D family are...
I might have missed it. Well, when did he imply that they were Shandorian royalty? I get he was saying that they had to be royalty of some sort, but like, what is it because of the monkeys on the bell or something? I don't know.
So recognizing the Void Century because they were the family that raised Joy Boy after taking him in as an orphan and raising him at a young age. The Monkey D family was the one who transformed Joy Boy into a warrior of liberation. And because Joy Boy would go on to become a legendary warrior, this gave Shandor real royal status, as Joy Boy would be known throughout the ancient kingdom as an orphan raised by this warrior family. And with Joy Boy being a sun god, it makes sense that the Monkey D family would be considered godly as well by the Shandorans. Oda's favorite trend is for important characters to be abandoned by their fathers and for their parents to die in a tragic backstory, so I don't see why the original Joy Boy story would be any different. Luffy never knew his father, same with Ace, and we can assume the same with Shanks, as he was found in a treasure chest at God Valley. And there's Whitebeard's entire character, which is adopting and raising young men that he finds like Marco, Blackbeard, and becoming their father. Nami never knew her family, and then her adopted mother tragically dies. Robin never spent time with her father or mother, and then her mother also dies. Usopp's father is still looking for milk at Elbaf, and then there's Zoro, who supposedly also died, and Sanji, who ran away from his own bloodline and considers Zeph's true adoption.
Ran away / got kicked out.
Device for whatever reason, and he's shown this reoccurring trend in the story of One Piece for adopted children raised by their non-biological parents. And so I believe that Shandor was once a lost relic, which was once part of the ancient kingdom before it was separated. And this would also explain why there was so much gold there, and why the city of Shandora has casual ancient kingdom style writings engraved in their buildings in the very same language as the poneglyphs in chapter 272, because they're heavily connected to Joy Boy. And I think it's one of the most overlooked and crazy reveals that we got from Scott Pia, and we'll also be getting more into the gold and its importance at the very end of the video, because there's more than you could have ever realized. If you know our Oars is Joy Boy theory, you'll know that there is so much evidence of Joy Boy being an ancient giant. And crazy enough, in the Scott Pia arc, there's a map that shows a giant Oni on the map, but we never saw any kind of giants in the arc. What the map being at least 400 years old and maybe much older, it's possible that the giant is Joy Boy as he climbed up the giant beanstalk just like Jack in the Beanstalk stories. If you look at many of the ruins and the Vor statue, they resemble an Ors-like beast. There seems to be an Ors in the altar of Shandora in Nolan's flashback as well. Oda also gave us another hint to the monkey family being connected to Shandora in the early Jaya arc, where we see these two characters who are essentially monkey men searching for Jaya with Nolan's ancestors. What a coincidence, these are the first characters that we meet in the Jaya arc, or the Skypiea saga. As Rayleigh says it, no coincidences exist in this world. Is it possible that these monkey men are descendants of the Monkey D family, or somehow related, making them some of Luffy's long-lost cousins? Oda wants us to know about the importance of the symbolism of
That's a
Luffy
reach.
from the very beginning. And time back into the Joy Boy theories of Shandora, we even see Nika battling a snake on a golden hieroglyph. I personally believe it's Nika because we saw that Nika had a sword in his silhouette, so he may have fought one of the giant snakes that we know exists in Shandora at some point. And I guess it could be any warrior really, but considering these people worship the snake as a sun god, this might explain why, as it may have been lost in translation over time, with this warrior being the true sun god. I also just think that the Monkey D family raising an orphan who was a previous Joy Boy during the Void Century would be perfect tying the entire story of One Piece together, with Luffy a Monkey D family member hundreds of years later being Joy Boy as well. It's also more interesting than the original Joy Boy simply being a member of the Monkey D family lineage directly. Similar to how Goku was being raised by a family that's not his race, the original Joy Boy may have had a similar backstory. And with Oars not being a Monkey D technically, it would explain why Luffy's family is not as feared and prosecuted with the Celestial Dragons and world government. Instead, we see in arcs like Punk Hazard from Law to the world government fears and seeks the power to resurrect and control the Oars giants instead of facing them in battle. To me, it's almost too destined by fate and kind of boring if Luffy is the same bloodline as the original Joy Boy. Instead, if we look at the Oars clan and the entire Oni race, I believe they were wiped out by the world government during the Void Century War out of pure fear of another potential Joy Boy appearing one day. This would also explain why Kaido and Oni was so obsessed with Joy Boy and his Oni heritage, and maybe even why King believed his captain was Joy Boy. And since Oars had the human fruit as the OG Joy Boy, it would also explain why the Straw Hat is so massive, as he would be a lot smaller in his human Nika fruit form, as we've seen that Luffy can enlarge and shrink his body into a giant or a chibi form. What if Goldie, Roger, and Rayleigh realized the importance of the Monkey D family when he saw Joy Boy at Laugh Tale? For example, Wizard of Voice once had a theory that tells the story of Laugh Tale, describing Joy Boy as a monkey. It would be a shocking twist when Luffy is laughing at the story and Robin and the other crew members are staring at Luffy with an insane look, as they realize that Luffy is the monkey, or in other words, Luffy is the Joy Boy that is on the story of Laugh Tale. And so maybe that's why Goldie Roger really wanted Monkey D. Garp to be the one to raise Ace. After all, Goldie Roger believed that maybe Ace could be Joy Boy since he said that Ace would be the one to find the One Piece. So Roger may have been trying to force a similar backstory to the original Joy Boy being raised by the Monkey D family. And tying everything back to Rayleigh, Roger is now dead, so maybe this is why Rayleigh believes that Luffy is Joy Boy, because now he sees the bigger picture. He likes Luffy because he sees Luffy as someone who changes fate, because since Rayleigh also knows about the future of Joy Boy, and maybe also the connections and importance with the Monkey D family as well, similar to Roger. Putting two and two together, after spending a few years with Luffy, he may have realized that Luffy truly is the man that Roger's waiting for. And there's even more evidence to prove that Rayleigh realized Luffy is Joy Boy, because when Luffy first meets Rayleigh, the Dark King says, "That hat fits a fearless man like you. I've always wanted to meet you." Then in chapter 603, Rayleigh began reminiscing about the first time he met Goldie Roger. Roger calls their meeting a fated encounter of destiny, and it gets absolutely crazy when Rayleigh, after remembering this, says maybe destiny goes on its plotting way. There's no coincidences in the world. Yet Luffy has grown into a man even more worthy of that hat than Roger. This is wild considering we would later see Roger and Rayleigh's journey to Laugh Tale through Odin's flashback. And in this flashback, they learn all about Joy Boy, and they learn about the future prophecies and both the past and future Joy Boys. And they learn about the original owner of the Straw Hat all those years ago. And we know this because we saw Emu staring at the giant Straw Hat in the freezer with Luffy's poster in his hand. And then Luffy is now finally confirmed to be Joy Boy by Zunisha. So now when we look back at what Rayleigh says, even more worthy of that hat than Roger, you can see that Oda was foreshadowing and showing us that Rayleigh, after his 2 years spent with Luffy, fully believed that Luffy would surpass Roger and be even more deserving of that hat than his captain, because he realized that Luffy is Joy Boy. as Joy Boy is the true symbol of the Straw Hat. And what's even crazier is that Rayleigh talks about no coincidences existing, but Luffy is also known as Straw Hat. I mean, how much more perfect does it get? This dude is the Straw Hat Luffy, known throughout the entire world through this moniker. So of course he's more worthy than Roger and Shanks. I just wish that we could have seen Rayleigh's revelations and reactions to all of this.
初めて会った時俺に何て言ったか覚えてるか回をひっくり返すだったがこの出会いは運命だ
Monkey D. Garp, who was respected by Goldie Roger, also seems to share a resemblance with the Shandian Chiefs, as he has the dog hoodie in the very first appearance and even looks a lot like the design for the Chiefs when we see Wiper in the Skypiea arc. So once again maybe hinting at the Monkey D family possibly being an important family of this land. And it also makes you wonder, have Garp and Dragon ever been to Shandora? I mean, if Dragon can fly around or even become wind itself, I wouldn't be surprised if he went up there at one point, especially considering his face tattoo feels very tribal and similar to the tattoos that we've seen on characters like Wiper. Really early on in the video, I explained how I believe the Monkey D family were the only family of the D clan to survive the purge of the D. It makes sense that most Ds were wiped out as they lost the war to the Celestial Dragons during the Void Century. But we can also see that if the Monkey D family were royal kings and godly figures of Shandora, that they also were almost wiped out. And we know this because in chapter 272, Robin explains how the city of Shandora was destroyed in a war. She says that the city's books were all burnt and the city's history was erased. Well, what does this remind you of? That's right, the Void Century, proving that Shandora's history was specifically imported and erased by celestial dragons during the war against the ancient kingdom. Robin says that there's no doubt the city once fought against the enemy, and she theorized that the golden city of Shandora was ruined in the service of protecting the Poneglyph. And she says at the height of its prosperity, insinuating that the ancient kingdom was extremely prosperous and a powerful kingdom. Now the Monkey D fam, if anyone has a family of warriors with extremely powerful wills and resolve, would be the one family to survive and keep Shandora alive. While many of the city was destroyed, we do still have it around. In chapter 1085, Imu mentions how the D once opposed the celestial dragons and speaks of the D as if they were eradicated. For example, Imu tells Cobra how none of these remaining D members know the true meaning of D and its importance. Well, this doesn't seem to really add up. For starters, why is Cobra asking Imu and the Godosei about the D? This implies that Lily, who existed during the Void Century, even she didn't know the meaning of the D. Otherwise, she would have explained what it was in the letter that was passed down to Cobra. It very well could be that D is Dawn, and that's what she was trying to hint at in the letter. But if it's something so simple and obvious, why not just spell it out completely? And so this is where I began to look deeper into this chapter, where I discovered something massive. You see, in this chapter, Oda gives us this funny little gag, Sa-di-bo, but Ace and Luffy giving Sabo the will of the initial. But what if I told you this was a major key? Because I believe that Sabo in this chapter was actually meant to very purposely parallel and symbolize Lily. You see, Sabo grew up with his brothers Luffy and Ace. However, Sabo was originally a member of a royal family. And this is the first parallel that I believe shows the similarities between Lily and Sabo, who are both featured in this chapter. Lily was a royal member and who would have become a celestial dragon, while Sabo was also a royal member of a high-status elite family. Sabo teaming up with two D members, Luffy and Ace. And I believe Lily betrayed the celestial dragons after realizing that she chose the wrong side. After the world government wiped out the D clan, and I'm assuming her friend, the Great Warrior of Liberation, Joy Boy. The reason Imu suspected Lily of having the D was through her mistakes, releasing the Poneglyphs to the entire world, intentionally betraying the celestial dragons. Now, if we go back to Ace and Luffy making Sabo a D member, I've theorized that this scene is telling us that the will of D can be passed down to other people, but only by other D members. In the past, there may have been some grand ritual, or maybe it was as simple as a simple sake ritual. But regardless, this theory became even more likely after chapter 1086, because even the Gorosei are speculating that Sabo is a D member, as he is naturally tied to many D members by fate. And so after Queen Lily realized that she chose the wrong side and regretted defeating Joy Boy, she met up with the few remaining D clan members who did survive the war. This is where the Monkey D family comes in, because I believe a surviving member of the Monkey D family inducted Lily and her lineage as a new family of the D clan to help carry on the clan's ideas deals. I believe they chose her after they realized that she truly stood with them, releasing the poneglyphs to the entire world. And a quick little side note, but I really do believe that Lily had the pawpaw fruits, and this was how she went missing after she disappeared in the blink of an eye through the pawpaw powers, and this was also how she dispersed the poneglyphs. In a literal and symbolic sense now, Lily is inheriting the will of D and carrying it on to the future generation. And after this, Lily and these few remaining D members may have chosen the next families to induct to the D clan. Like maybe she chose the Gold family and the Trafalgar family, looking for survivors who would honor Joy Boy's legacy. She may have spent her final days helping the D clan as much as she could. This theory works on the premise that someone from the D clan had to survive, and who better than a legendary Monkey D general like an ancient Luffy or Garp-like man? Or maybe the reason why no one knows the true meaning of the D is because the only survivor of the D clan at that time was actually a young D member, like a young boy from the D clan who didn't even know the truth about the meaning. Now see, if you think about it, if Luffy earns the title of king, it's very possible that the previous Joy Boy of the past was also a king. I've spoken about it for a couple years now, but I believe the ancient kingdom was a kingdom of pirates, and that would explain the gold that was in Shandora, because after all, what's a pirate paradise without a bunch of golden riches? Same way Wano was also most likely once allied or part of the ancient kingdom as the land of gold, and the place where the poneglyphs are written. I believe this pirate land was a place of freedom, and a place where people who seek liberty could exist, a pirate haven or pirate paradise. And so my theory that Luffy's dream is to create a pirate paradise was furthered when Blackbeard refers to a pirate kingdom as his dream. I think it was the hint that Blackbeard's dream is the same as Luffy's, a pirate paradise as well, but of course it would be a different vision for this pirate kingdom, and I'll leave a link to where I talk about this more, about Blackbeard and Luffy's dream. I also believe that this was Roger's dream, and
We've helped millions of creators improve their SEO to grow their YouTube channels. TubeBuddy is a platform.
Luffy's vision is closer to where Roger dreamed of, where Blackbeard most likely has a similar vision for his kingdom as Zebek. That also adds to Roger saying that he wishes he could see Joy Boy's era, as Roger is the most pirated character in the world as the Pirate King. But this Joy Boy era that he speaks of is both Luffy's new pirate era and the original Joy Boy's era of the past, which is why Luffy is the man that Roger's waiting for. The land of pirates would be directly opposing the world government. The world government paints pirates as villains and evil devils for simply existing, because becoming a pirate is seeking freedom. As we explained through Roger's freedom quote, when Dragon brings it up, he says, "Hey, a pirate, not a bad idea." And this brings up another point. What exactly is the Jolly Roger? The Jolly Roger is the skull and crossbones. So what if Joy Boy was the one who created the first ever Jolly Roger? And then now every Jolly Roger that we see today is a pirate ritual that carries on Joy Boy's will. And if Joy Boy's Jolly Roger was the pirate flag, it may have been also the flag of the ancient kingdom. Lily says to bring back the flag of the dawn, which will make Luffy's Straw Hat Jolly Roger the new era's flag of the dawn. It's a very common theory that the original Joy Boy is where the Straw Hat originates from, as we see Emu looking at the giant Straw Hat in the freezer while holding Luffy's bounty poster. It's interesting because Alabas's flag is also a sun flag. Also, I believe that Joy Boy is the dawn itself because Toki's quote during Wano says that you are the moon unaware of the dawn, and on this channel we believe that Wano is the moon and Luffy is the dawn. Wano being the moon, as the clans of Wano have the moon in their name, but the Sukis like Kozuki and Amatsuki, and Hiyori being the moon princess. Luffy is the dawn because he's the sun god, bringing back the era of dawn and light to Wano after these 20 years of darkness. And on a larger scale, you could expand this riddle to the entire world, because once Luffy becomes Pirate King, and we see that
I really enjoyed that. There was a couple things where it's like too much speculation on certain things that really threw me off. And the whole fact that the D family was the old rulers of Shandora, because it seemed like Kalgara's family has been ruling it damn near since the beginning of time. So that's like kind of like where because it's like vague information that you're using, that, you know, it's like possibly this could have happened, you know, 400 years ago, because we're talking about things that could have possibly happened 400 years ago. So I definitely understand where the speculation and everything can, and where his opinion does fit in those situations. I just feel like it's just too vague. Like the whole like you can argue the evidence behind Dragon's powers. You can argue against it, you can argue for it, you know what I mean? So it's still too vague for us to even say anything about that. And also, like I said, like I feel like it just took too long to really get to the point of what the video was really about. I get it, you're trying to do a video about the whole monkey family, but I just felt like he spent way too much time on Garp, Luffy, and Dragon's connections to each other. Like, I feel like at most you just need 5 examples, 5 solid examples, and that's it. You don't have to go through their history with each other and their similarities. You know what I mean? We all know it's father, son, and grandpa, so like obviously the history is the history. But other than that, like this is a top tier video. Like I definitely am thinking differently about some of the aspects he talked about. I still don't believe that the monkey family was the rulers of Shandora, but just doesn't seem right or fit right with me. So that's Preach. Honestly, we're probably gonna just watch one more video, and then I'm going to because I have to set up, because I just bought a One Piece card game box. Well, not these obviously, but I bought the booster pack box that comes with like 25 packs. So I'm gonna prepare for that live stream later. So we're probably just gonna watch something from matter of fact, Hidden Island, and then later on tonight we can watch more. And by the way, like anybody I watch theories or videos or review their videos, I'm usually a subscriber to their channel, so I am a firm supporter of most people that I review their videos on. Obviously trailers and just random videos with clickbait titles are different situations. Okay, this is a nice short theory. What really happened to the treasure on Hachinosu? So let's really get into it.
Shampoo smells great and helps keep your hair thick and healthy looking.
Okay.
Hey guys, a lot of people have asked me over the last few months if I could put out some smaller theory or analysis videos to kind of keep up pace with the chapter releases and stay close to current events while I work on my big videos. And I think that's a great idea, actually. So here's a cut together version of some theories I have after reading One Piece chapter 1096. Spoilers ahead, I hope you enjoy. We seem to have an introduction to a couple of God Knights here that aren't Garling. I'm going to assume these are all God Knights. Now, one thing that first came to mind, I was reading this chapter. First thing that came to me, this one here. I don't know what the deal is. I don't know if there is a connection. I couldn't tell you what it is exactly. But this God Knight or this Celestial Dragon looks kind of like York to me. I don't know. Is that just me, guys? I kind of get York vibes from this one.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know how that would work in terms of like, you know, the connection to Vegapunk. It's possible, and this is something we might learn about later, that while Vegapunk split his brain between the clones, the bodies of each of the clones may not be from Vegapunk, right? Because Vegapunk doesn't look anything like his clones. They all look like completely different shapes and sizes and anatomies and so on and so forth. We don't have an example of Vegapunk creating like a person from scratch. The people that we've seen Vegapunk create, whether it be the Seraphim, the Pacifista, they're all clones of an existing person. So we have the Seraphim, who use the lineage factor from existing warlords. We have the Pacifista, which obviously use Kuma's lineage factor. We have Stussy, who was cloned from Buckingham Stussy's lineage factor. And we have all the Vegapunk clones. But we don't really know where their designs came from, where their likenesses came from. And I think it's just interesting to me that this one happens to look very similar to York, and York was the one that has this like ingrained desire to become a celestial dragon. So what does that mean? Could it be that Vegapunk has been using the lineage factor provided to him by the world government? So the world government provided him the lineage factor for all the warlords, which he would use to make the Seraphim and the Pacifista. They provided him with the lineage factor to like make those devil fruit powers and put them in different people's bodies in the Seraphim's body. It could be that they also provided him with the lineage factor of celestial dragons or something like that, or world nobles, in order to create his clones, maybe. I don't know, just something to think about. So it could be that his clones are made from other people, taking their lineage factor, combining it with his brain, taking part of his brain and sticking it in a clone made from someone else's lineage factor, and then you get one of the many Vegapunks. So if he had taken this Manmeyer, whoever this Manmeyer family person is, I'm assuming they're part of that family here.
Okay, my bad. As I was saying, this makes a lot of sense, for the simple fact that Vegapunk already said that there's certain things in the lineage factor that they can't overcome. And we saw with the Boa clone, what was stuck in her lineage factor is the love for Luffy. So that actually makes a lot of sense that if he did use the blood of a celestial dragon to make York, that York would yearn to want a better life. She would think that just eating, sleeping, and pooping is useless, is beneath her, you know what I mean, beneath, like subjugated to just do that for the rest of her life is just not something that like she feels deep down inside that that's not for her.
The York stuff out of the way. The next interesting bit of information we get, I mean, aside from the fact that this is obviously a horrible slaughter, this is this is probably one of the worst things we've seen from the Celestial Dragons in the entire story, if not the worst. This is like one of the most awful, cruel things imaginable. And it's just kind of crazy to me that while this is happening, Garp's just kind of lounging. He's just kind of lounging on this poolside chair and just taking in the sun here, but it's just kind of crazy to like juxtapose that, you know what I mean? But before we get to Garp, let's talk about the fact that we have Fleet Admiral Kong here. We get to see Kong finally do anything, literally something, like in the story. Kong has done absolutely nothing up until now, and I guess he really hasn't done anything still, if we're being real. You know, we see him say here, our reports haven't been verified, but if the danger is real, it'll be a disaster. He's more concerned about pirates pulling up to this island than about the Celestial Dragon's brutal killing game. He doesn't seem to care too much about that. And honestly, neither does Garp. And this is the point I wanted to get to, where he goes, you want me to go way out to the boonies to fight? What's the point? He doesn't seem to give a shit about this. He might not even know exactly what's happening at God Valley. That's also a possibility. But this line is interesting here. This is about the Celestial Dragon's little field trip, isn't it? Why should I care if they're in trouble? I always said it would come back to bite you if you mess with Hachinosu. It's their own damn fault for poking the hive. So this is the kicker, right? What did they expect? You don't just swipe the crown jewel of Pirate Island. Of course they'd come to get it back. Where in the world did you hear about that? You must have assigned them extra protection to compensate for their stupidity, right? So, what's got you flustered? Well, there's something we didn't account for. It seems Roger's on the move there too. Lead with that next time. I'm on my way. So Roger is the guy that Roger needed to be mentioned to get Garp out of his chair. So Garp is more concerned about Roger than he is concerned about Rox, which is something I don't know if I was expecting that, right? Because we always knew Garp was the one that was on Roger's tail the whole time. He was like,
See, I did, but only because I felt like Roger, the way Garp always made it seem, is his relationship and Roger's relationship was more so like Luffy and Smoker. Like Garp met Roger and like he was like the pirate that got away, like, you know what I mean, like, and ever since then he like so it's like accomplishments that Luffy did was given the Smoker was given the promotions for in the Navy's eyes. So I feel like in a parallel sense that same situation happened with Garp and Roger. You know, Garp was chasing after Roger. Roger was just going around doing what he wanted, and it just so happened some of the things he did, Garp got, you know, the whole hero Garp and all that. Like, I feel like all of his accolades were mainly or the main result of him trying to capture Roger. So I think that's why it personally didn't surprise me, his reaction.
like Roger's marine rival. But for some reason, he doesn't seem concerned with the idea of the Rocks pirates going to fight the Celestial Dragons, right? Isn't that something that you would think, like, given the reputation that the Rocks pirates have, given the reputation that Hachinosu has, and, you know, all the people involved in that crew, how Garp talks about it down the line in the future, you would think he'd be a little bit more pressed about this. He'd be like, okay, we have the entire Rocks crew on the move right now to go fight some Celestial Dragons. I don't really care about that. Let them deal with it. They're idiots. That's their fault. Oh, but Roger's coming. Oh shit, I gotta get there. This is a problem. Why? Why is it a problem? And I think that might have something to do with the way that God Valley ends and the way it finally plays out. But what I want to focus on is the crown jewel of Pirate Island, this thing that gets mentioned here. Now, I have two potential options for what the crown jewel is. I think the crown jewel of Pirate Island is very likely to be either Roger's egg or something else. Let's explain the Roger's egg thing. We're going to see later in the chapter. This is very early in Roger's career. You know, we've been wondering about this egg that's been on Roger's ship the entire time. We've seen all the flashbacks with Roger. We've seen his ship. We saw the Oro Jackson. There's this big giant like Yoshi egg that's like on the ship. It's sitting there, and we've been wondering this whole time is like, what's the deal with that egg? What's going on with that egg? What's it gonna hatch? What's inside? Where'd he get it? Why has he had it this entire time? This egg may have originated at Hachinosu, and the Celestial Dragons maybe pulled up to the island and they stole it from the island, maybe to add it to their collection. We know how they are. You see the way that they treat Kuma. They kind of treat him like a trophy for being a rare race. You know, he's a buccaneer. Look, he's a buccaneer. It's like they treat them almost like some sort of like collectible or trophy thing. Par for the course with the Celestial Dragon. So this is not new behavior from them. Here we have a situation where they may have stolen an egg from Pirate Island for a similar reason. Oh, this is a rare thing. I know what this is. I want to have this in my collection. I want to bring this back home. So what could be in the egg? Well, it's possible that there could be a real dragon inside that egg. We don't have any big examples of real dragons in the story. We have Kaido, who is a dragon by virtue of his devil fruit. Yeah. We have an artificial dragon. We have a couple artificial dragons made at Punk Hazard. And then we have the dragon that Ryuma fought. But Ryuma fought that dragon so long ago that it doesn't even fall in the present timeline of the One Piece story. Yeah, there's no like modern dragon.
Yeah, and another thing too, going with dragons, is that people fail to realize is Vegapunk also just recently pretty much said it in this recent chapter, is that he needed DNA to make stuff. So like there had to have been dragons, and they had to have had like access to dragons or dragon blood, bones, or some sort of DNA in order for them to make that model dragon. So, you know, that's just another thing to think about.
Dragons. There's no dragons anywhere in One Piece. This is kind of like a Game of Thrones situation where dragons are known to have existed. They're real. In One Piece's case, there's like these workaround methods for acquiring dragons, whether it be by devil fruit or lab made, but there's no like natural dragons. So where'd they all go? I feel like a giant egg that seems to have not hatched. It takes a long time to hatch, so much so that it was on Roger's ship for a majority of his career, presumably, and it still hadn't hatched. That sounds like a creature like a dragon. You know, dragons live a very long time. Their eggs, typically in fantasy, tend to remain dormant for a very long time. There was a dragon, we know for a fact then there was a real dragon 400 years ago. That's still a large gap of time. It's possible that that dragon died after Ryuma killed it, and there was no other dragons. That could have been maybe the only one left at the time, who knows? That'll have to be a blank that Oda fills in later. But I just think it's interesting that we have this gap in time where there's potentially no dragons out there, and we have this egg that's been sitting there on Pirate Island for a very long time, and it's considered this crown jewel of the island. What I think would make sense is if a celestial dragon stole this egg with the knowledge that it's a dragon egg. That would be very fitting, right? Because think about it. You are a celestial dragon. You consider yourself a god of the world. This is a mythical creature, extremely rare, and it bears your likeness. It's a dragon. It's the very thing you're named after. You're a dragon. You call yourself a dragon. This is a real dragon. Wouldn't you want to own a dragon as a pet? Like, just put yourself in the mind of Charlos. Put yourself in the mind of Charlos or Roswald or any of these fucking idiots. Oh, it's a dragon egg. That could make for a good pet, Daddy. I could eat my tea and crumpets on the backs of my slave while looking at my dragon in the morning. Please, Daddy, can I have it? Can I have the dragon egg, Daddy? Please. Sure, son. You can have this dragon egg. Take it. Take it from rocks and put it on your ship, son. Good job, Charlos. I love you, son. We celestial dragons must keep the bloodline pure, Charlos. When we go back to Marijuana, I'll kiss you later. So they stole the egg. Obviously, Rox wants to get the egg back. So Rox goes over to God Valley. He sails all the way there. We're gonna get this egg back. But as we know, at the end of God Valley, Rox fails. He presumably dies.
I chose Wix for my business because of its massive scope for functionality and freedom of creation. Being able to integrate and change and develop at my own pace. I offer a range of products and services. To manage it all from one place is essential.
Rox is dead. So Rox definitely didn't succeed in his goal of getting back the treasure, the crown jewel of Pirate Island. That's where Roger comes in, because Roger was the third party no one was expecting. Roger was this wild card that kind of got thrown into the mix, right? If Roger didn't pull up, we would have had Rox versus the God Knights and the Celestial Dragons. Rox would have pulled up, probably succeeded because he wouldn't have had Roger to fight back against him. And then in the process, he would have gotten the egg back and gotten away and blah, blah, blah. Victory for Rox. But that's not what happened. Roger came in, he stole the show, and then I think he actually literally stole the egg. I think that's what Roger escaped from God Valley with, was two things. Shanks, baby Shanks, possibly even baby Buggy. That's something we don't have a confirmation of yet, because we don't know where Buggy came from. It's possible Roger got away from God Valley with baby Shanks, baby Buggy, and then baby Dragon in the form of a dragon egg, not Monkey D. Dragon, and that's what he escaped with. He kept that egg, dipped from the island. That's what I think is a very likely possibility for the crown jewel. And then I'm assuming at some point in Roger's career, or maybe even after he died, that egg possibly hatched, right? Because where did that egg go? Where has that egg been in the last 20 years? Roger died. He died on the execution stand. The crew split up. I think the last time we saw the Oro Jackson, it had the egg on it. Where could this egg be? Well, what if I were to present an idea to you guys that kind of wraps things together in a very nice, neat bow? Where would this egg be right now? What did that hatch into, and where is it? Well, if they had the egg on the ship when Roger left, that means that someone that isn't Roger took that ship and continued sailing with it. Well, we know Rayleigh didn't do that because Rayleigh doesn't have the ship right now. Recently in the story, we've had a mysterious character get introduced to us. And this is a character that is apparently has a lot of knowledge about the poneglyphs, the Void Sentry, might actually have the answers for how to get to Laugh-Tale, according to Eustace Kid, according to some people. The man marked
by flames.
There's a man marked by flames riding around
Yup.
on a burned, charred black ship. Think about this. If this egg hatched into a dragon aboard Roger's original ship, that dragon may have hatched and scorched the whole ship.
That's true.
The whole ship up. Maybe the dragon is powerful enough to create whirlpools in the ocean.
Wow, that's
There's a man that was sailing this ship with the egg on board, and he was there for this hatching. He may have been marked by flames. I'm positing that Scopper Gaban is the man marked by flames, and he's marked by the hatching of the dragon that was in that egg that not only burned him, but burned the Oro Jackson. And now Scopper is traveling around with the fucking dragon, causing whirlpools and so on and so forth. And that's the crown jewel that was taken from Hachinosu.
Wow.
That's the first idea. But the second idea, in terms of the crown jewel for Pirate Island, is the giant straw hat. I think there's a possibility the giant straw hat may have been the crown jewel of Pirate Island. The Buccaneers. I'm willing to believe that Hachinosu was created by the Buccaneers. This was originally a Buccaneer island, right? Pirate Island. Well, Buccaneer is often used as a synonym for pirate. In fact, in the real world, and possibly even in One Piece, Buccaneers are like the progenitors of Golden Age pirates, of standard swashbuckling pirates. Started with the Buccaneers. So you could almost say Pirate Island is the same thing as calling it Buccaneer Island. Almost. It has a real world equivalency in the island of Tortuga. Tortuga, meaning turtle in Spanish, is an island off the northern coast of Haiti. In the Golden Age of piracy, the island was known for being a pirate haven. The rocky island was protected by a strong fort and provided safe anchorage for French buccaneers between raids on Spanish ships. As a matter of fact, buccaneers were very well known for protecting islands, so they were almost seen as heroes, right? They protected various islands from raids of Spanish fleets and so on and so forth. They protected Tortuga. That was like a big one that they protected. It's one of the reasons it was able to remain a pirate haven, was that buccaneers stayed there and protected it. It's very possible that Pirate Island was created by the buccaneers 900 years ago or whatever as a haven for other buccaneers, for pirates. Very direct real world equivalency. And we have, you know, the whole thing with the giants being based off of Vikings, who were like the OG pirates. We have humans being based off Golden Age pirates, and the buccaneer race being humans with giant blood, almost, kinda. And then buccaneers as a concept being in between of, like, you know, old style pirates and new age pirates. So it all kind of works together. It fits together. Well, why does this make sense for the giant straw hat being the crown jewel of the island? The reason I think this works is because
excuse me.
Joy Boy, if that's Joy Boy's hat, we don't have a confirmation it is, but if we're assuming the giant straw hat belongs to Joy Boy, based on its size, there's a good chance that Joy Boy was a buccaneer. The Buccaneers are a race of people that basically started the whole idea of resistance against the world government. We have this line later in the chapter: you're the buccaneer brat. You can either live as a slave or die. Nothing else can be tolerated for someone of your ilk. You can either be a slave or die. You can't tolerate anything else out of a buccaneer. Why? What did the buccaneers do that was so terrible? That is what the tides of time have decided. And then Kuma says, if you're born to be a slave, then what's the point in being born at all? If I have some kind of power now, I'm going to use it to save as many people as I possibly can. Just like Nika. Not only is Nika part of the Buccaneer folklore specifically, it's like a Buccaneer folktale. We got that from Kuma's dad, Clap. We know now that Nika is not just any story, it's one that's told, it's been passed down through the Buccaneer.
I wouldn't say that's where I would agree. Like, granted, it is a story, but like, I feel like it's more of like their religion, you know what I mean, than just a regular story. the fact that he had to tell his father had to tell him in like kind of like a fun story setting is more because they were captured and you know what I mean, they're slaves, so it's not like he can truly, you know what I mean. That's why Kuma always devoted himself to it as a religion, because the sun god is an actual, like, you know, so we're worshiping the sun god as an actual religion in this world. So I wouldn't really just brush it off as just a story that was passed down by his ancestors. I would more say it's this religion that just so happens to possibly be true, that these people actually follow. You know what I mean?
We know that Kuma wants to be just like Nika, and we know that because Kuma wants to be just like Nika using these powers, Saturn says that is precisely why your people needed to be erased. Your people, not just you.
Or
Not just Kuma,
you
it says your
people.
needed to be erased for the exact reason you just stated. If I have the power, I'm going to use it to save people just like Nika. So this is not just a concept that's unique to Kuma. This is all the Buccaneers that want to be like Nika as a whole. This is a common trait of their people, which makes them a target of the world government's ire. It makes more sense to me that I know I used to say that Nika was a Lunarian. Of course, at the time, I didn't know about Buccaneers. No one did. So I worked with what
That's
I
a
had.
fact.
It seems a lot more likely now that Nika was a Buccaneer. At the very least, part Buccaneer. So, if Pirate Island is a creation of the Buccaneers, if piracy is something that was born from the Buccaneer people as a way to resist the power of the world government, if the straw hat, the giant straw hat, is Nika's hat, if it's Joy Boy's hat, it would make sense to me that the crown jewel of said pirate island, of the Buccaneer Island, their crown jewel, their secret treasure that's so important to them, might be Joy Boy's straw hat. Another detail that for me, this is maybe a personal bias, this connects to one of my own theories, but I talked about in my earlier theories, I mentioned how the straw hat and what the symbolism of the straw hat is that it might be the crown of the sun god. Like, the meaning of the straw hat is not just that it's a straw hat, it's that it's actually meant to be a crown. If this is a crown and they're calling it the crown jewel of Pirate Island, like it literally uses the word crown in the terminology, I don't know. That could be a helpful piece of information to tie it in there. But like I said earlier, that's a little bit of my bias coming through, because that does tie into my own theory. That's not really a part of the story, but that's just kind of a way I'm trying to make it all connect together. So that's all for today, guys. If you enjoyed those theories and ideas, please check out the rest of the VOD, the 1096 review that I have up on my channel. It's available publicly.
All right, yeah, those quick little 4 or 5 theories, well, I think it was only 3, but still, those were very interesting. They were short, they were to the point. I really enjoyed it, and it gives you really a lot to think about. Probably like the Hachinosu one is probably like the dragon one is probably the most believable, with Scopper Kaban having the egg in Roger's old ship, and that being a dragon egg. I'll be right back. I'll be right back to finish my point. Okay, sorry about that. Like I was saying, these these little short mini theories and ideas that he had were very well thought out. They make a lot of sense, and I hope he does more like this, little 20-minute videos of just like 2-3 theories he thought of. I feel like this is better than let's say, like, even though Preaching Orz's video that we just watched was well thought out. Like, they put a lot of time and effort into that video, but it, like, when I feel like when you do long videos like that, you get mixed up with certain points, so you kind of like repeat what you're saying like 3 to 4 times before you actually get to what the core video is actually about. And with this, he had like 3 ideas. He got a couple examples. He got 1 to 2 examples out in the beginning of his point, got to his point, and then brought it all together at the end, which left like 5 minutes for like 5 to 7 minutes for each actual video. I mean, each actual point that he was going over. So like, I feel like it was just a well put together video at that for the short opinions he did have on it. But that's all we're going to be doing for today. I will be streaming later on today, unboxing more One Piece cards, so I hope you guys tune in later for that, and I hope you guys have a good daytime, night, whenever you guys catch this